There are lots of different ways of transferring your pattern markings to your fabric. This is the method I like to use for doing darts. It's really quick, really simple, and it just uses a couple of pins and a few snips from a pair of scissors. So I have cut my pattern out of my fabric, so I'm ready to transfer my markings. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little snip at the edge of the fabric where these lines meet the edge. You're not too worried about impacting on the rest of your pattern because you've got a 1.5 or 5/8 seam allowance the whole way around all of your edges. So as long as your snips are smaller than that, you won't have any problems. So if I just do a little snip and a little snip, you can see they're really nice and easily visible, but they're not going to cause any problems. My stitching's going to be much, much further in. So now you're looking at transferring this marking here. This is when you'd traditionally pick up a needle and thread and do a tailor's tack. But what I'm going to do is grab a couple of pins. Now I'm going to grab a pin like this. I'm not grabbing a pin with a big head like this. The reason for this is that these tend to get stuck, whereas these don't. So it's much, much better off to use some of these. I'll grab a couple of those. So I'm going to grab my fabric and I'm going to push the pin into the fabric so that it's just sticking up the other side. And then I'm going to grab a second pin and in the same position push it back through the opposite way so that I've got them going in both directions. So that one's now sticking out the top. If I then unpin my pattern from my fabric and lift that away, what I'm left with is these pins sticking out on both sides. And the reason why there's two pins is because generally speaking when we're doing darts we're doing them in pairs so that we've got a left and a right. So if I now peel these away, you'll see that I'm left with these pins sticking out on both pieces. So our markings have been transferred. This is where that central marking was. So all I have to do now is fold my fabric, make sure my snips are together and my pin is on the fold. I like to then just pop in a couple of little pins, hold everything in place, and then I put a pin in the end here pointing at where that marking is. That way I can take this little pin out and then it won't get in my way later. So now I know that I'm just going to be stitching from this snip all the way down here in a nice straight line to where this pin meets the fold of the fabric. Some people like to draw a line with chalk or a pen or pencil that vanishes. I just tend to go for it. It's all about confidence levels and there's no rights or wrong on that one. And then I've got this one here ready for me to pin with my marking just as I did on this one. So there you go. Really quick and really simple. Well worth giving a try.